Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. Hello. Already got some of you guys in there. Thanks for joining today. We are going to be painting a watermelon today. So I actually got some of my old watermelon paintings up here to show you guys. And if you're new here, I do this every week on Wednesdays. You can tune in and I'm going to walk you guys through my whole painting process. So I'm going to show you all the color mixing and then the step-by-step on how I apply the colors to the canvas. Hello. I'm glad the audio sounds good. We're doing good this week. Oh, thank you. Yeah, my birthday was last week. We painted this little cheesecake for my birthday. I'm really happy how this one turned out. I had a lot of fun doing this one. This was a longer one. Today I decided to pick a reference photo that's a little bit easier today, so it won't take us as long to paint this one. So this is a really good, easier beginner one to do. And I figured I'd switch it up every week, kind of some more harder ones and then some more simple ones as well. So I'm going to switch over to the paint scene here. So you guys can see, so I put some of these little watermelons that I've painted in the past on the palette. Hello, welcome to the stream. I'm going to grab the reference photo off of my easel for this week. So this is what we're going for this week. I forgot to change the one from last week. Definitely forgot to change the reference photo from last week. Oh, 1 second as I change it. But this is going to be the one we're going to paint. So there we go. Got that all switched up. And so we're going to be painting this one. We're not going to be doing a background on it, so we're just going to focus on these main colors on the canvas. Yeah, it's going to be fun to do another one today. I'm excited. I've already got my paints laid out here, and I actually made a little handy color wheel for you all so that I can show you all of the colors as I'm mixing. It's really helpful when you're first starting out painting to actually make a color wheel based on the colors you normally have on your palette, so then you understand how they interact with other colors around it. And see you guys. They're going to the library again today. They didn't want to bug me on stream again, so they're always trying to leave the house. So that is what we're going for today. So I guess we can get straight into color mixing. I will take these other ones. We don't want to get paint on these ones. And we will go from there. So with a color wheel, it's nice because we can take this and be like, put this up to our reference photo and be like, what kind of colors do we want to go with? And it's kind of a good base. So like, obviously this red here, this cadmium red is really close. So we're going to be using cadmium red. And you can also see there's some alizarin crimson kind of notes, some of the darker ones in there. And then for the peel, we've got more of that green. So we're going to be using the sap green as well. And then to make these darker areas, I don't like using black, but I like mixing a little bit of the two darkest colors. And as you can see, the two darkest colors on this one is the alizarin crimson and then the ultramarine blue here. And I normally mix those to make the darkest area, and it gives us a nice, really deep purple. So we're going to start out with that. I'm going to put a little color wheel back over here. Let's start out with all of these reddish pink tones in here first. And we're going to start out with the cadmium red light. Oh yeah, I got to give you, so on my palette today, I've got titanium white, I've got warm white, I've got alizarin crimson, cadmium red light, and then cadmium yellow light. I've got sap green, cerulean blue hue, and ultramarine blue. And that's the only colors we need. We don't need any other colors for today. Okay, we will start out with the cadmium red. And like I said, we put it on our palette. We get kind of a base of where we're starting with. and then we can work our way. I think we will work our way to the darkest colors, and then we'll go back and lighten some of the colors. So I'd like to maybe add a little bit of blue to this. So I'm going to add some ultramarine blue to darken this a little bit. I think it'll get us closer because it's not quite that bright on there. And we're just gonna add the color. That looks pretty good. That's gonna be kind of like our mid-tone color there. And then we're gonna grab a little bit more of the cadmium red light. We're gonna add even more blue this time to get a slightly darker. Now there's gonna be two different types of this color that we're going to mix, because we're always looking in the shadows and the light of the object. So these parts of the watermelon are more in the shadow, and then you can see the light is bouncing off of this side. But then we've also got a shadow kind of like underneath both of them as well. So the light is bouncing from the top somewhere. And we're just kind of guessing where the light was coming from in the photo. But you can tell pretty easily just by picking out some of the lights and darks. Okay, let's see how this one is. I think we add a little too much blue in that. I'm going to put this one to the side because we still might need that. I'm going to grab more cadmium red light, and I'm going to actually add a little bit of alizarin crimson this time. Deepen it with this red over here instead. Hope everyone's day is going well. I actually going to see a physio later. I've been having back pain, so I don't know. I think I injured my back a little bit at the start of the year, and it's still not great. So I'm like, I should go see a physio and make sure everything's okay. It's probably nothing big, but my joints are all hypermobile, so I injure myself a little bit easier than other people. I can do weird party tricks and bend my thumb back and forward like this. All of my joints are a little hypermobile. So I'm sure my back is the same as well, and that's why. Okay, just adding a little bit more alizarin crimson to this one. I'm trying to deepen the color without changing it too much. And I'm kind of, yeah, I like that. That's a pretty nice color. You can kind of see there's just a slight difference. We're trying to make different transition colors. And then I also want I'm kind of liking like these ones that we did, but this one's like a little bit more red. I kind of want to go more on the red end this time, which is kind of nice. I do them more pink usually, but I like the red tones. Okay, and then we're going to add a little bit of this one because we added a little too much blue last time. So I'll add a little bit of this in there, not fully, and that should give us more of a color that we want. There we go, that's closer to what we're looking for. And then we also want to make, I'm gonna clean my palette knife a little bit, so I just have a tissue here that I can clean my palette knife. I'm going to take alizarin crimson, excuse me, and then a little bit of ultramarine blue. I don't want to add too much ultramarine blue. I want it more on the red end, the reddish purple end. And this is going to be our darkest areas and the seed colors, because our seeds are going to be purple, because I love adding color to things that don't normally have tons of color. Okay. And then let me click this in. There we go. I'm drinking peppermint tea, if you're wondering. That's like my favorite tea, is I'm always drinking peppermint tea. Okay, let's see if that's enough white for that section. It's actually looking pretty good. And then we're going to keep some of this on our palette knife here. And we're going to start adding a little bit more white as well. We want to get some of those really white areas. think we actually need to turn this a little bit more yellow. Yeah, this is a little too pink. A little too pink, so we're gonna put a little bit more yellow in this. Which will give us more of like an orangish color. As it gets lighter, it seems to be reflecting more of like an orange light. It's a little closer. Yeah, that's pretty close. It's like a nice kind of, I guess, salmon color. That's what most people would call it. Put that there. And then we're going to also make these really bright highlights here. They've actually got more of like a blue tone to them. I'm going to clean this part off. Because when we're making highlights, we want to make sure everything is cleaned off so it doesn't mix with anything. I'll take a little bit of the titanium white, and I'm going to add just a touch of the cerulean blue hue. Maybe a bit more. You don't want to add too much of this pigment. It is super bright. You can see it's already kind of turned it pretty blue just by adding such a small amount. That's the nice part about buying good quality oil paints, is they have a lot more pigment in them than they do oil, and you don't need to use a lot of them. Okay, I'm gonna see if that's okay for almost turned it a little too blue. I'm kind of just looking. It's pretty close though. I think I want to add a little bit more of the titanium white. That's a pretty good highlight color for us. We're not going to need a lot of this either. We're highlighting just specific areas. Okay. And then we will also do all of these areas down here. So we're going to want to do different greens now. We can start out with kind of those darkest areas and then work our way to the lighter areas, the lighter greens. And I'm going to start out with sap green because I love using sap green for things like this. My other ones I used sap green, so like these ones I used sap green as well. So we're going to kind of try to make similar greens to that. I also used sap green for this one as well. I like this little picnic blanket one. Kind of added the picnic blanket design in last minute. I feel like fabrics are really fun to paint. So I will probably grab a little bit more of this. I'm going to take just like the solid color and I'm going to put it right around here. So that's going to be our darkest color. I'm going to start adding a little bit of the yellow here. Cadmium yellow. And this is going to lighten it quite a bit. We're gonna notice this is pretty bright though, so we're gonna probably want to add some ultramarine blue in pretty quickly. When we start lightening it with yellow, we're gonna have to darken it a little bit. Okay, got that is a lot closer. So we're gonna put a little bit of it there. We're gonna keep some on our palette knife, and then we're gonna slowly lighten this a little bit more. We're gonna add some of the yellow. I'm trying to lighten it with color first before we add white, because white is going to make it really pastel-y and a little bit chalky, the colors, and less saturated. So try not to, if we can. But there's obviously some areas you just need white, so we add it in then. Like we need to go a little bit more yellow for this one. Yeah, that looks pretty good, I would say. And then we also need some of these, so you can see that this area where we did all of these lighter tones for this, we're gonna have to do the same for the green area as well. So we're gonna make kind of a whitish area that has like that green that's a little brighter, and then this one is a little bit more desaturated there. So let's make the desaturated one first, and then we'll go and we'll get those brighter colors as well. So I am going to actually use warm white for this one. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue. And in order to desaturate this a little bit more, we're going to take the complementary color to give us that nice shadow, which if we look on our color wheel here, the complementary color is always to the side, across from it. So we're doing sap green. We want to go over here and probably do some sort of alizarin crimson is probably what we're going to go for here. Just a little bit. I don't want to add too much. But you can see right away that gives us the color that we're looking for. Exactly. And then I also want to make a slightly lighter one as well. I'm going to add a little bit more white here, so you have a little bit of variety. And slightly lighter. And then we want to make kind of this one as well here. Because it's not quite this bright, we want to make it kind of more of this green color. And this time I'm going to take the titanium white and start adding a little bit of titanium white to that green color. Just whatever's left on our palette knife. And that'll give us the brightest one that we'll need. And we don't need a lot of that, so I'm only going to mix up a little. That's what I was just doing. There. And then we also want to look at the darkest parts here in the shadow. We're definitely going to use some of this purple in there, but there's also some reflections of the red in the shadow a little bit. So if you blow the photo up a little bit bigger, you can grab the photo on my website if you want to download it and blow it up a little bit bigger. But it's got a little bit of red, and then it's got more of like a green undertone in there. So we're gonna make something kind of like this, but we're gonna put it more on the green side and then also do a little bit of red in there. So we're going to take the ultramarine blue, and we're gonna add just like a touch of yellow to it. Another touch of yellow, because we don't want to lighten it too much. There, it's like closer to what we want. And then we will use some of the purple in the shadow too, but we want more of that green color. Okay, and I think we're pretty good to paint now. So I can switch to like the main painting scene here. Let me put up the reference photo. Didn't take us too long to mix today because we didn't have to mix too many colors. I'm just going to clean off my palette a little bit before I put this down. I'm going to grab the reference photo and put it over here for you guys. This has been really helping, I've heard from a few of you, to have this extra reference photo here beside the painting, and then you guys can see there. That works out. And then I'm just gonna move this so you can see me while I'm painting, or at least see the side of my face. It's hard to have it right in front while I'm painting, but there we go. And then I guess I have my palette knife there. Keep the palette knife out just in case we need to mix again. We should be okay. I'm just going to brighten this up a little bit. I noticed that this is darker again. Let me just brighten it for you guys. There we go. Okay. It's nice. I learned how to like brighten these things up a little bit this time. So there we go. Desaturate that. There we go. That's a little bit more accurate. And then for paintbrushes, we're going to start out with bigger paintbrushes and then work our way down. So first we're going to start out with, this one is a number 2 Seneca flat brush, and it's about this size compared to the painting. I did a little sketch already, do a very basic sketch. I was explaining this last week. It doesn't need to be perfect. The only thing you need to put on the sketch is the general idea of where the object is. So I just, like I said, you could take your finger, you can just kind of have a general idea. It doesn't need to be perfectly in there, just kind of make sure you center it with your paper, and then that's all you need. It's just a quick little outline, so then we can work the rest of it from there. And I'm going to take this little gummy eraser that I have, and I'm going to dab off a little bit of the graphite. Just so it doesn't mix in with our paint. Some of these colors are really light, and especially if you have too much graphite, it's going to get in with your paint and it's going to mix with the pigment. At least if you're using oil paints. I guess it would too with a bit of acrylic. But there we go. And now we can just kind of like only lightly see the sketch, which is exactly what we want. And then the first color that I like to go in is kind of like a on the darker end. I don't want to go to the very dark color. I'm kind of going to stay more in this like bright color and then work our way to the other ones. So we'll start with this one, the second darkest one on the palette. I also work solvent free, so for my oil painting I just use a little bit of linseed oil if I need it. I have a little jar of linseed oil over here. I'll put it here so then you guys can see when I use it. And then we can just start painting because we're at this stage already. And if you need help while you're doing it, you can kind of just like be like, okay, it's kind of in that area, so let's put a little dab over here. We're just doing a really small layer. We're going to go back in and add details after. So we're adding in kind of the darkest areas, or where the darkest areas will be. And then over here. This one behind is even like a little darker. So we're going to add more of this to the one behind. I'm really trying not to put too much paint on here because I want to add more detail later on. I'm also working on oil painting paper, so it's a cold press cotton paper and it's already primed, which is really nice, especially when you're starting out. But I tried to move to canvas after like I first learned oil paintings, and I just love the paper feel a lot more than I liked canvas. And I tried a bunch of canvases, and I also tried other things, but I just keep going back to the paper because the texture is really nice to work on. I guess it's just like me being familiar with it, and I feel like you can get more details on some of this paper compared to canvas too, because there's just there's so many like little divots in canvas that you have to work with, which some people like that, but I love the texture of the paper. Okay, we're gonna go to this next color here, which is the brighter red. We're going to start adding that within this darker color. I am leaving some areas for the seeds. There's a smaller seed in that one. I like watermelon too because there's all those like really pretty patterns within the watermelon. We're going to grab the next color, which is this slightly lighter one. slowly start to take shape as we add more color. It's going to look a little wonky for the first little bit until we add some of those highlights and details. But once we get this base color down, some people like to just paint like a full-on base color to begin with, which is called like an underpainting. You don't have to do underpaintings, but sometimes it can influence the colors around it. But we already pre-mixed our colors, so we don't really have to worry about that. Kind of almost doing like an underpainting with this. And it will look really dark at the start, but we will add some of those lighter colors. And it'll make more sense as we add the lighter colors. And now we're going to go in with this pinkish color. Just going to clean up my brush a little bit because I want to start adding some of those lighter colors. But I've got a lot of that dark color in my brush. Almost thinking we might want to switch brushes. So we have one for the lighter ones. I'm going to use this for the lighter colors. Go in with this like peachy color. This is the nice peachy color that we're looking for along the edges. Hair on that. Little cat hair. Just finding cat hairs in my work. We'll start to see some of these other colors blend in and create a lot more depth as we go. Add this lighter color in along the edges. We can go and touch up the edges later, but I'm just trying to get the basic shape fully filled in at this point, for the most part. go. And then we'll do the same over here. This area is like a lot darker, so we don't want to add too much of this. I'm going to go in with this slightly darker watermelon color. Go. Just gonna clean off my brush a little bit because I want to put more of those lighter colors on. It's just a little too dark. There we go. Right on the edge is a little bit lighter here. There. So we've got like a really nice base to start, and then we can start working on these edge pieces, which are a lot lighter. And so we can go in with this peachy color for the most part right along the edges. And we've got to go along right on this edge part here. I'm not going to fill it in fully because I kind of want a little bit of the white to show. You can use some of that for like highlights and stuff. Sometimes you can just use the paper for highlights. I'll do the same on the other side as well. Go, kind of have that base color down. And then we're going to start adding some of this lighter highlight, but we're not going to clean our brush while we're adding the highlight, which will give us a slightly darker highlight. It's a little bit of mix of this and the highlight color. That's going to give us a nice transition color to slowly add some of it in here. That's going to give us a base of where we're going to put the highlight. Just cleaning up the lines here along the edge a bit. And then so focused today, I'm not even talking. Sometimes it's really nice to just paint in silence, though. If you guys do have any questions, though, let me know. And if you're watching the stream back, I will go and answer your questions when I see them. Let's see. Going more into this highlight color now. I'm not adding the brightest highlights yet, but I'm just kind of going along the edge, and you can start to notice that it's helping lighten some of these areas that we're wanting to be a bit lighter later on. It's getting closer to that color we're looking for. I want to add, I think, the seeds in next. And we can play with those a little bit as well. This one's a really nice, like, quick one to do too, because you can kind of just get the base colors down and call it quits like that if you want, or you can start adding a little bit more detail. It's up to you if you want to keep adding a bit more detail into this. But you guys all know me, I like to add quite a bit more detail, so I'll show you how I would add more detail to this as we get to the end. Just all of the like little finishing touches. And I love the texture when I'm doing these little watermelon. You can see all of the cool like little paint strokes and stuff. Going for realism, but not hyper-realism. And I'm going to grab one of these. This is going to be the number 1 round Princeton Velvet Touch brush. Use that one just to make the seeds. And we're making the seeds with this little one here. This one is like the purple we mixed up, where the darkest areas. There we go. And we're going to add the seeds in now. So we've got kind of one here. Don't have to match the seeds up exactly. We'll put a few seeds in. Normally I buy seedless watermelon, but I saw this reference photo and I kind of edited it a little bit because I was like, it'd be fun to put some seeds in it. You can normally find kind of like free reference photos either. There's a few websites. Maybe I will put them in my Instagram stories if you guys want some free reference photo sites. It's helpful when you're first starting out because sometimes you don't want to take your own photos all the time and you just want to get to painting. You can find a reference photo online normally. I mean, if it's just for your own use, you could use any photo, but if you're sharing it online, to make sure you're using copyright free reference photos. So I get a lot of these ones either on, is it like pexels.com, and then some of them I also find on Canva. You can find those. If you're going to use Canva ones, you do have to edit them a bit in order for them to actually be copyright free. So I go on Canva and I edit the photos a bit. Okay, I think we've got enough. I'm kind of adding a few of the like little shadow parts in there. I'm going to take the darker brush that we got here, dip it in this dark one. I'm going to actually dab over top of some of these. And this one also has it dabbed over top. There, we're kind of just blending some of these back in a little bit. Blend this one in too. And then this one is one of those white seeds down there, so I guess we could add kind of like a lighter colored seed. Realize we didn't really mix anything for that. We could use, I'm trying to think if we have any other colors we can use. We can just grab a little bit of the cadmium yellow, grab a little bit of this green, and a little bit of this pinkish color. The seeds so kind of shape them a little bit nicer. They don't have the nicest shape right now, so just gotta shape them while they're on here. So the nice part about oil paints is you have lots of time to kind of go back and blend if you need to. So we're just going back and blending in some of these colors. Shaping it a little bit more to our liking. Here we go. It's coming along now. And now we can start to add some of that green down there. So I'm going to start with these lighter color. Maybe I'll start with the darker colors, yeah. I always want to start with the lighter colors, but you really should start with the darker colors and work your way down because they just blend better from experience. I'll put the darkest color right along the edge here. This one as well. Along this edge. Okay. And I'm gonna grab this lighter, this smaller brush that we were using. This one is a 20/0 liner Princeton Velvet Touch brush. This is the one we use for the yellow. I'm gonna clean it off a little bit because we don't really need that anymore. And we're going to go in, I think with this green, this lighter green. Just adding a little bit of linseed oil to the paint. A lot of the time when you get into the white paint, it's a little hard to use, so I add a little linseed oil. Thank you. Yeah, it's coming along, getting there. Slowly coming along here. We're just gonna go right up against that darker one, and we're slowly gonna make those transition colors in there and fade it into that lighter color. Over here. Get in there. And then we're going to go with the even lighter color that we mixed up. So this one right here, add linseed oil over here. You don't want that much linseed oil, so I'm just going to kind of mix it as I need it into this middle section here. If you add too much linseed oil, it won't cure properly. Because oil paint over time doesn't actually dry. It goes through a process called oxidization. The oil hardens over time. Whereas in like something like acrylics, the water evaporates and the paint dries, but the oil paint just hardens. That's why it takes a lot longer. That process is a lot longer than something like an acrylic. Like it'll be touch dry within normally a few days, but then for the layers underneath, I do pretty they're not very thick layers, so they will cure a lot faster than if you were to do really gloppy thick paint. It could take, if you're doing really thick paint, it could take years for the oil paint to fully harden. But for me, it's probably anywhere between 4 to 6 months before I can varnish it. So I'm not supposed to varnish paintings until they're fully done. There is some varnishes that are have solvents in them that you can use right away. Solvents, so I just wait for my paintings to fully here before I add anything on top of them. Okay, so this is getting in there. Just adding this color in slowly. Kind of blending it as I go along into this red part as well. Guys enjoy watching all of this. I appreciate when you guys give me feedback on what you want to see throughout the streams, and it seems like you guys like how I'm doing it so far. Trying to find ways always to improve the stream, so if you guys have any suggestions on how I could improve the stream, let me know. Kind of been back and forth about like adding music to the stream because some people want it and some people just say they like listening to their own music anyway, so it's better that it's not any music. So I decided not to add music for now. Also, music gets complicated because then I can't post the replays of my live streams because YouTube won't let me monetize them that way. But I could use like copyright free music. Okay, so we're gonna do the lighter areas. So we have this slightly lighter color. This is gonna be right along this edge here. On this side, it's gonna be on this side. There we go. And then you can kind of see the difference, how it's a little bit lighter on that one area here, and then a little bit darker here. And we're starting to get the effect of the shadow that way by doing that. And then we're gonna lighten this up even more as we add some of these little details in here. So don't worry that it's a little bit darker. We will be lightening it up anyway. And we're working on that next. So I want to maybe add some different patterns in here now. So we're going to, I'm going to clean off this brush. It's already in a lighter color anyway, so it shouldn't be too hard to clean off. I'm going to start by making some of those little patterns. This is a 20/0, so it's the smallest liner brush that I do have, and we should be able to make a decent amount of details with this. I'm going to try not to use as many brushes today because, oh my gosh, the amount of brushes I had to clean last week after that. I think I had at least 10 brushes I had to clean. We had a lot of colors, so it's nice to have lots of brushes when you're working on a bigger painting with like, well, smaller painting, but with like lots of colors. Like when you look at last week's painting, so like last week's painting versus the amount of colors we have for this week. There's a lot of colors in this one, so we don't have to do as many this week. I really love the cheesecake though, it looks so good. I had cheesecake for my birthday. I ended up getting actually strawberry cheesecake too, so it was quite fitting that we had a strawberry cheesecake to paint. So that actually worked out quite well. Now for the colors, we're gonna start by just using this pink mixed with like the smallest amount of this white. We're gonna actually add, yeah, I think that'll be fine. I'm gonna start with those lighter colors first. And then I'm gonna slowly add these patterns in. So I really like the swirly area. It's like a swirl that kind of goes around from here and then goes into here. I almost want to add some yellow to this because I feel like it's a little too white. So I'm going to use some of this yellow we kind of mixed up already. It's kind of nice we mixed up that yellow kind of on the fly there anyway, because I think this will be really nice. Nice little addition that we weren't really thinking originally. So now we're just adding all of these little patterns. So we've got the swirl here, we've got some nice kind of longer ones here. I'm probably going to need to keep dipping it into that lighter color because it's not going to show up really well to begin with. We're using really, really light kind of brush strokes for this in order to get this effect. It's one way that you can work on creating different feels is using lighter and heavier brush strokes to see what the effects are on your painting. Here. As you can see, it's definitely helping to add a little bit of that detail. You can start to see a little bit of the detail. It's harder to see, I guess, on camera. I will take some close-ups of these afterwards too. I mean, the camera can only pick up so much, right? So. Okay, I'm gonna grab some of that white color now. I don't want too much of that yellow color. And we're gonna go in with these lighter colors here, especially along the edge. And we're gonna start to add a little bit more highlights in some of this area. This one's kind of speckled here, so I'm like just using different techniques based on what the texture kind of looks like in certain areas. There's a few different types of texture. There's some more like speckled areas, and then some areas have more kind of like lines and speckled texture along the edge. adding highlights along this edge here. I'm gonna add a little bit more linseed oil. Just more flowy. Makes the paint more flowy, easier to work with, especially when you're using these smaller brushes. Kind of just blending it along this edge too. Just a bit of fabric. Okay. Add more of the textures in here too. Go back into that pinkish color. The salmon color. Gonna add a little bit of the linseed oil to the salmon color. Just need it to be a little bit more flowy. Okay. I think I want to add a little bit more on this area. I feel like we need to make it a little bit lighter along this edge. So I'm just going to add a little bit of that lighter color in there. I'm going to lighten this up along the edge here. I'm just touching up the edges here now. Slowly adding more of that texture in there. We will work on the shadow because we can't forget the shadow at the bottom. That's gonna add Really nice effect to the bottom there. Make some of this darker color into the side part. Felt like it needed a little bit more depth along the side. Adding that deeper color in. I'm going to add a bit more of this pinkish color in here. I'm going to add a bit more of this cadmium red light into it to brighten up some of these areas here. I think with a little bit of yellow in the cadmium and make kind of like an orangish color. So just a little bit of yellow and cadmium red. I feel like we need a slightly brighter color along the edge here. A little bit more of the cadmium yellow. We're kind of just like pushing and pulling the colors until they feel more accurate. Sometimes when you get the colors on, you're just like, I need a slightly different color. So that's what we're doing, is we're just adding a little bit more of that yellow to it. This will brighten up this edge here a little bit. It just wasn't bright enough. There's a few really bright areas within the painting as well that has that yellow, and so I'm just kind of adding little bits of that yellow in there. This will give the painting, like I said, a little bit more depth as we're adding more colors. And then it'll give us that glow we're looking for on the edge. It's almost like glowing along the edge here, just from the light. I'm also going to add a little bit of that orange kind of over here on this side. There we go. Just adding a little bit over here as well. Trying to touch up the edge of this one a bit more. some kind of lines in here that have that bright orange color. So we're gonna just add those in. There. And then I want to add the shadow in, so we're going to grab one of these brushes. I'm wondering if we should use one of the new brushes or try to just, I think we need to grab, probably could use this green brush. The shadow does have a little bit of that green in it anyway. I'm just going to clean it off a bit more. It's cleaning off pretty quickly, so. And we've got this kind of bluish color, bluish green color. We're going to mix a little bit of this purple in with it. So it's going to be mixed. There we go. And we're going to start adding in the shadow. So we're looking at the shadow over here is a bit more red, so I'm going to be careful with that. And I'm just going to add it on this side, and then we'll do kind of like a reddish wash on that side. This one, just a little bit. And we're going to take some of our really small brushes, and I'm going to play with this a little bit more. Okay. I like to use, like last week I was using, where is it? This crappy little one. This one's a 2/0 round Princeton brush that is very little and has been damaged a lot. So that's going to be great for blending out that area. So what I do, I'm being very careful around here. I even want a slightly smaller brush for this part. I have a I could use one of my liner brushes. I'm going to dip it in a little bit of oil though. So it has a bit of oil on it. Just using this to really get that line a little sharper. Just down at the bottom here. Notice that the line is a little wonky, so we're just fixing it up a little bit. Just blending that a little bit more. This is very like tedious work, this last little bit, but we're getting there. This part. There's just a little bit of oil there. So I'll just, like, a little oil on the brush will help me spread it a little bit easier. Because there's already pigment here. We just have to spread the oil now. Just gonna clean off this little blender brush thing that I have going on. And I'm gonna add a little bit of this red color to here. Because there's a little bit of red on the edge here. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of red. Bit of reflection there. Like just a very light shadow. I'm trying to replicate here. Same with on this side. That's pretty much what it is. It's just like a little bit of a shadow here. There we go. Then I'm going to darken up a few of these areas. We've already got this little liner brush. Dip it in this really, really, really dark color, this purple. And I'm just going to touch up the darkest areas right along the edges of the watermelon. And that'll kind of highlight it a little bit better. A bit more of this purple. And honestly, I don't want to do too much more to this, other than maybe adding some slightly brighter highlights. But like it's already coming along quite good. Got this one that we were adding bright highlights with. I'm just going to clean off this kind of pinkish color. And then we will go in anywhere we feel like we need some of those bright highlights. I think we've like pretty much added the bright highlights though. In with this lighter color. We're just going to keep dipping back into this lighter color as needed. Go. There's more of these on the closer one. You can kind of just see them more because I think this front one is a bit more in focus. So we're going to focus more of the attention on that front one there. If you want something to be more in focus, you add a little bit more details in the back area. There we go. That's feeling pretty good. I'm gonna touch up that area along the side too. I noticed that this is the green that I used along here. Oh. A little bit of separation from this one here, so I'm just adding in those little fine details on the edge and lightening this just a little bit. Not too much though, because it is in the darker areas. There we go. Okay. I mean, now at this point, we just sit back and take a look at everything. I like how it turned out. It's actually pretty close to the original. So I guess that we did it pretty quick today, actually. That was a lot quicker, the stream, which is nice. We got like an easier painting done today. Actually, tomorrow I will be going to Vancouver for a dance workshop weekend, so I'm really excited about that. I gotta finish packing tonight. But I will be back next week anyway for the live stream as well. and I will post the live stream. I already have, I think it's scheduled on YouTube, so you can go and see what the next one's going to be. But make sure you sign up to my email list, and I can send you guys the reference photos if you do want to try it out. And I also send live notifications like on the day of. So even if you don't want to paint, there's live notifications, and then you'll get kind of that sent to your email, so it reminds you about the live streams. But I hope you guys enjoyed today. I'll do my little thank you scene. Thanks for being here. It was really fun to do the live stream today, and I hope you enjoyed watching my process and painting, and I guess I will see you guys in the next one.